As you push past the cloud into the eye of the storm, the terrifying scale becomes clear to see. Hurricane Melissa has just made landfall in Jamaica. The Category 5 storm has brought 185-mile-an-hour winds. 1 metre of rainfall is expected to fall in the mountains, and a storm surge of 4 metres will hit the coast. All the ingredients for the most powerful storm to make landfall in Jamaica since records began. As the eye of the storm hit the southwest coast of the island, authorities issued their final warning.
In that eye wall, which is that area that surrounds the eye, you will have that most intense wind speeds, but also the most torrential downpours of rainfall. That area will pass from the coast right across as the eye moves. Of course, that is the protective area for the eye that moves along with it, all the way from the southwest of Jamaica to the north central part of the island.
At the moment, one of the worst hit areas is Black River in the southwest of the island. They're used to storms here, but not of this magnitude. In poorer rural areas like this, roofs are often made out of corrugated iron. They're not built to withstand this. Satellite images from yesterday show the vast scale of the storm. Moving slowly, there were concerns people weren't heeding the calls to evacuate. This was the situation in the capital, Kingston.
I'm here because I'm not afraid of the storm, because Jesus is my refuge and my strength in the time of trouble. So I'm out here in spite of Melissa is coming and heading towards Jamaica.
What is to be, we can't stop it, right? Yeah. You gotta take what you get, right?
But Marlon, the manager of Rockers International Record Shop, wasn't taking any chances.
As you can see, we're already in the storm, battling up, getting prepared and everything. Everybody's a little bit on the edge because we never really experienced a Category 5 before, much less at this magnitude. So, yeah, all of us are a little bit worried.
Towards the end of the hurricane season, this is unprecedented. The World Meteorological Organization say it'll be the storm of the century for Jamaica.
The fact that Melissa rapidly intensified, it grew from a tropical storm to Category 4 within 24 hours. That's due to the extremely warm seawaters where Melissa is hovering over. It gets to draw all that energy out of the extremely warm ocean. We say that hurricanes are getting wetter. Well, Melissa is a prime example of that. These storms are getting more intense. Well, here you have a Category 5 event. These storm surges are getting higher. It's everything that Melissa is showing is in the line of what we know of what climate change is doing with hurricanes.
With power outages and phone lines reported to be down in some parts of the island, those in the UK with family in Jamaica are anxiously waiting for updates. Back in Black River, people are sheltering in the hospital, hoping it can keep them safe. But forecasters warn the worst is yet to come.
Well, our weather presenter Liam Dutton is here. Liam, why is this one so bad?
Well, Matt, the Caribbean's used to seeing hurricanes at this time of year, but this one is particularly bad because it's slow-moving in nature. Now, typically, hurricanes have a forward speed of around 10 to 15 miles per hour. But at one point, this hurricane, as you can see here on the satellite picture, it was stationary. It wasn't even moving at all.
How does that happen?
I know. And even 48 hours, since then, it's only been moving at around 5 miles per hour. So why is that significant? Well, it's significant because it means it spends longer over the places that it hits. And that means that they get more prolonged spells of torrential rain. It increases the flood risk. You get a longer storm surge and you get more devastating winds. So it just prolongs the impacts that these places see when storms like this tend to sweep in.
And how is a storm like this affected by climate change?
Well, as we know, climate change is warming our oceans and our atmosphere as well. So for hurricanes, warmer oceans means they have more energy on which to thrive, so they can rapidly intensify even more quickly, and potentially reach even higher wind speeds. And a warmer atmosphere can hold more moisture, so it means hurricanes like this can deliver even greater amounts of rainfall, which increases the risk of flooding and landslides. And finally, not to forget rising sea levels, because if you live in a coastal area, it means that you're more exposed and more susceptible to the level of storm surge that these powerful storms bring.
So Melissa is pummeling Jamaica at the moment. Where's it going next?
Well, it'll continue northeastwards across Jamaica through tonight. It will make a second landfall tonight in eastern Cuba, probably as a Category 4 hurricane, so still a really significant storm. Later tomorrow, it'll reach the central Bahamas, probably having weakened by that stage, so probably not a major hurricane by then. And eventually by early Friday, it will have reached Bermuda. But one thing is for sure, it's going to leave a trail of damage and destruction in its wake.
Liam, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Well, joining us live now from Jamaica is the Minister of Energy, Transport and Telecommunications, Darrell Vaz. No? Right? So we don't have Darrell Vaz. We have Christiana Figueres. Okay, we're going to talk to you a bit later. Okay, let's go to Jackie. Jackie, this is your interview, I think.
Well, joining me now is Christiana Figueres, a Costa Rican diplomat. Figueres led the United Nations efforts in tackling climate change from 2010 to 2016. During that time, she oversaw the 2015 Paris Agreement, a treaty designed to limit global warming to 2 degrees. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I mean, the warming oceans have meant this storm is far stronger than it would have been without climate change. What, in your view, does this storm, the worst Jamaica has ever seen, tell us?
Well, we've just heard from 2 sources just now that this is what climate change does. It does not produce hurricanes. It makes them more and more powerful. This is, as has been said, the most powerful hurricane of this year and the worst that Jamaica has ever experienced. It moved up very quickly to a Category 5 because it was lingering on oceans that were 3 degrees warmer than they should have been because of climate change. What is incredible here is that these developing countries did not cause climate change. They are the ones that are suffering the worst impacts, and they are least responsible. Just to put a number on that, once this hurricane goes through, it is likely that Jamaica will receive some international help to be able to recover and rebuild. But as a whole, these countries that are slammed by these hurricanes have to find 80% of the cost of rebuilding, recovering, and increasing resilience from their own pocket. That is the unfairness of climate change.
I mean, it has been a decade since you were instrumental in getting the Paris Agreement over the line. The world is heading to about 2.5 degrees of warming instead of 4 degrees. That's a huge difference, but it's still clearly not enough, is it?
It is definitely a huge difference. Every 1/10 of a degree really, really counts. We are better than we were 10 years ago, but we have to be able to reduce emissions and very likely take CO2 in a safe and sustainable way out of the atmosphere in order to protect what the islands put into the Paris Agreement, which is not 2 degrees. It is 1.5 degrees as a temperature ceiling, because that is what keeps them halfway safe.
I mean, when you look around the world, do you get a sense that countries are still behind the environmental project, as it were, or do you think it's losing impetus?
I think because of the nightmare that we're seeing out of Washington, D.C., frankly, there is a political backlash because some countries just don't want to stick out their neck right now. What is interesting is that while 10 years ago, it was precisely the national governments that were in the lead on their ambition and their commitment to address climate change, that is no longer so, but it is all other stakeholders. So we now see subnational leaders, we see private sector, we see the financial sector, we see technology providers and investors. We see them now taking the lead in the absence of the lead of many countries and governments, especially in the global north.
I mean, COP30 is due to start in just over a week's time. You were one of a number of senior figures who wrote an open letter to the UN, to the United Nations, to say the talks needed an overhaul, an urgent overhaul. Briefly, if you would, in what way, and has that overhaul been delivered ahead of the talks in a week's time?
No, there's still many processes underway, but with the overhaul, what we have to do is understand where the capacity, where the opportunity for change is now, and that the Brazilians are already leading on. They understand that the opportunity for leading on addressing climate change is, at this point, not political, but rather in the real economy. They understand that, and they are focusing on what proof points do we have that the economy is actually beginning to decarbonize, not at the scale and speed that we need.
And I've seen you describe yourself, I think, as a gentle optimist in the past. Do you remain optimistic, albeit gently?
I do, because we need to, because the fate of these nations is not one that we can play with.
Christiana Figueres, thank you so much for talking to us. Thank you.
Thank you.